believe most of us are. And if you remember last time we spoke about the role of theology, creating an African theology in order to facilitate African restoration. So tonight, I'm just going to quickly do a quick synopsis. And I'm saying it's in the synopsis because I'm touching on, just key issues. Given the fact that we only have 10 minutes, I think if one would like to hear more on that, we can offline, because I understand with such topics sometimes it's very easy to to be misunderstood. But like I said, this is a synopsis into the role of religion in Africa's economic restoration. And I say this because I made an argument last time that a religion is an economic facilitator, and that is why even as Africans we had our own religion, and religions such as Christianity, they originated in Africa, they were repackaged and then re-commercialized back into Africa. And I made the argument that as Africans we need to rediscover what is Africa's religion. And when we do this, what we need to do is we look at find out how was our religion looking like pre-colonialization, what was the interruption, and then we need to ask a question: if there was no colonialization, what would Africa's religion, Africa's Christianity look like? And so today what I want to do is to touch on key things that when we start developing that notion, that philosophy, that religion, these are the key things that we should look at. And I said one of the things that a good religion should do, these are what our leaders should be sitting together and making sure that they ensure, is that a good religion will charismatically unify. And I'll use different examples as we go about this. When I say a good religion will charismatically unify, it finds a way to unify its people. Am I okay, Audrey? It finds a way to unify its people. As big as Africa is, the reason why Christianity was able to go throughout the world, to be globalized, so to speak, is because it had threads and elements of unification. If you examine Christianity, you'll find that there's ways that they thread, together certain concepts that makes one drop the individual and become a community. So a good religion will charismatically unify. I also want to use the example of the Dutch Reformed Church. We all know that Afrikaners are not natively an African nation. So Afrikaners were a nation that was developed when they arrived in Africa. And if you read one of the books, The Rise of Afrikanerdom, you'll see that one of the key things that they realized, that if we want to make Afrikanerism a nation, they had to create a religion that would sustain the nation. And that is why they broke away from the Roman Catholic Church and came with the Dutch Reformed Church. That reform, it was talking to a reform away from Catholicism into a new era, a new religion that was going to speak to their needs, that was going to unify them as a people away from the people that, for example, were not identifying with the Roman Catholic Church. So secondly, I want to say that a good religion, it will systematically empower its people. I want to make an example of halal. If you look at the Muslim religion, one of the prerequisites, if you're Muslim, you don't eat anything other than what is halal. Same thing as Judaism. If you're a Jew, you don't eat anything that is not kosher. What that does is that it creates a system that ensures that if a Muslim brother or a sister has a rand, that rand will not be spent anywhere other than with another Muslim brother. So what Islam does is that it's created an economic system that will support and protect its people economically. So when we create an African religion, that religion, it needs to be able to sustain its people economically. Thirdly, it should progressively evolve. And I speak about, again, Judaism. If you look at the original Jews, how it was when it was founded, up until today, it evolves. And I'm saying this because every time when we speak about Africanism, people always get caught up in wanting to go back to animal skins, wanting to go back to the Stone Age. And people feel that if you're an African and you're not stuck in the Stone Age, or if you're an African and you comb your hair or you wear cloth, then you are not, therefore not African enough. That's not what a good religion does. A good religion finds a way to preserve itself and yet still evolve with the time, so that its subjects can be able to live and in whatever world it finds itself in. Secondly, I want to speak about what a good religion will do. And I want to start by saying that a good religion will catch you where your faith fails. Because remember, faith is an individual thing. So again, coming back to the example of halal and kosher, a good religion, if I fail, if I cannot believe in God for my daily bread, if my faith today is too low to believe that I can have food on my table, for whatever reasons, because we are human, religions are meant to serve humans, not the other way around. Then that is where, for example, a halal concept would come in, and there would be concepts that say that before you eat, check your neighbor. Before you do this, so a religion must make sure that wherever your faith fails, it catches you, not that your faith must sustain the religion. And that is why I'm saying economically, a religion is one of the engines of economic restoration. Number two, it will give you identity and belonging. So the confusion throughout Africa about who's an African, who is not, who our brothers are and who are not our brothers, whatever religion that our theologians and our leaders should come up with, it should give us all a common identity where we can still be individuals and still belong as individuals within a community. And then it will also be subjectively robust. By that, what I mean is that a religion, by definition, it's subjective. And so it's your faith that subscribes you to a religion. So as much as it is led by faith and belief, at the same time, it must be robust. So whatever principles and philosophies that the religion upholds, just because they're based on faith, just because you expect somebody to believe, doesn't mean that it doesn't have to make sense. So whatever that it is, it must stand scientific fact, it must stand the test of time, it must stand scrutiny, basically. And so one of the things, last but not least, that I want to touch on is then how do religions come to being? How do they sustain themselves, and how do they get how do they kick off and get traction? So the first thing I want to say is religions are developed. So we must come out of the trap of thinking that religions fall from heaven. No, religions are man-made features. They are man-made phenomenon. They are made by people. I use an example of communism, because communism, as much as it's a philosophy, it's an economic system. If you look at it closely, communism would not work as an economic system if it was not based on atheism. If it was not, it had to first eradicate the idea of God for it to be able to stand as a religion. So you cannot have a communist economic system without the atheist spiritual system. So same way with Africa, we need to look at what is the economic system we're looking at, and how is our faith system going to sustain that economic system. And these are the things that I'm talking about, are things that are already there. We're not going to be reinventing the wheel. As I'm saying, these things were there, we just need to find them. And if you want to know more about these, I'm more than open to share my research, and I'm doing a lot of work on this. Number two, religions are mandated. They are mandated politically. They are mandated in socially. Again, I want to use the example of the Roman Catholic Church. The Roman Catholic Church had to be mandated by the British rule, right? It had to be by the British dynasty, by the Queen, and we'll know that when the Protestants came, there was a break. That's because there was a political break from British rule, and there was a need for more independence, and therefore the first thing that needed to happen was for a religion that was a parallel religion, which was Protestantism. So religions then, they had to apply and they had to fight so that they had a political platform. So religions are politically mandated. Number two, religions are funded. For a religion to succeed, there must be somebody who's willing to commit to fund that religion. And I look at the example of the Spanish Inquisition. You will know that a lot of people were killed. A lot of people's lives were destroyed. Those lives that were destroyed, they were not destroyed independently by individuals. They were destroyed because there was funding that was ensuring that whoever was doing the Inquisition would be able to sustain that campaign. And mindful of time, the last one I say is that religions are sold, right? So you mandate your religion, you fund your religion, and then you have to invest in selling your religion. So, and you can only sell something that's sellable. And that is why I say for a religion to gain traction, to take off, it must make financial sense to me as an individual, it must make financial sense to my community, it must make financial sense to us as a people overall. And that's what our leaders should be doing. And lastly, I'm saying, of course, there's a question, who's going to develop this religion? I have not touched on the difference between religion and culture. Pardon me?
1 minute to 5 minutes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm very much aware. Lastly, I say, who's going to develop this religion? Yes, like I've said already, it's our spiritual leaders, it's our traditional leaders, it's our charismatics, the Orthodox, the mainline churches, the New Age churches. Everybody has to be part of the African Restoration Project. There aren't people who know more than others because everybody knows a little bit of something. And so this is where I'd like to say, calling on to the next speaker, to say, as the role of South African leaders is who is going to come into the African Restoration, Economic Restoration Project. And that is where our likes of the AUs and our politicians and our legal people, every skill needs to be part of that project. And with that, I'd like to hopefully to raise the Joshua generation from Ms. Bilo Mabandla, who can take this conversation further. Thank you very much.